Our next presenter is Ms. Laura Haight, which is PMD 14-P1.40.
Good afternoon. Happy nomination day all across the province. People have put their names in. The Fords have switched. Lots has gone on while you've been hearing this hearing today. Good afternoon. My name is Laura Haight, and I would like to thank the panel again for this opportunity to speak to you regarding OPG's proposal for a deep geologic repository for low and intermediate level nuclear waste at the BMPD. I trust the panel is enjoying their stay in Kincardine and the stress-free commute that brought you to the Legion today. Last fall, when I addressed the panel, my comments focused on the community engagement undertaken by OPG and NWMO and the elements of note taken by the Council of Kincardine and surrounding municipalities that garnered their support of the project. I trust there is no need to rehash all that was said last fall. And so today I would like to center my comments around risk, and specifically risk of this particular proposal within the context of municipal governance. A few weeks back, I received an amusing little Facebook post regarding how things had changed. It started with a picture of a large faux wood paneled station wagon traveling down the road with a harried-looking mother at the wheel and 6 kids piled all over the place, some crawling into the front seat, and the caption read, "We didn't have seat belts." The next picture was of a teenage boy with a girl sitting atop the handlebars of his coaster bike, traveling down the road with their hair blowing in the breeze, and she's drinking an icy cold Coca-Cola in what is no doubt a glass bottle, and the caption read, "We didn't have bike helmets." The next was Victoria Day. Probably it was the 4th of July, but for this purpose, I will keep it Canadian. And there was a group of 6-year-olds sparking off firecrackers to great delight, and the caption read, "Our parents let us possess and light off explosives." The fourth one was a classroom full of kids eating peanut butter sandwiches, and the caption was, "We ate peanut butter at school." There were several more amusing little vignettes. And as someone now just over the 50 threshold, and I can assure you that each and every one of them rang true as something that I had done or experienced as a child. Classic nostalgia of the 50s and 60s. The little show ended with the comment, "It's a wonder any of us survived." Anyway, in preparation for my little discussion of risk, I was thinking about that Facebook post. I was thinking about that little show and wondering what lessons can be learned from it. Quite frankly, as a parent, I was glad to have my kids strapped down into their car seats, and providing them with bike helmets when they were little seemed the prudent course of action. I was gladder still that my sons couldn't get their driver's licenses within a few weeks of turning 16 like I did. But the activity was the same. The risk was the same. What has changed was how we manage the risk. Better equipment, better training, better rules and processes. A young child riding a bike today can still wipe out, skin a knee, or break a wrist, or perhaps even become involved in an accident that will take his or her life. But the incidences of traumatic head injury or fatality have been greatly reduced since the wearing of bike helmets has become mandatory. The public over time accepted the change to manage the risk inherent in the activity of riding a bike. And even though there are still fatal car accidents and fatal bicycle accidents, there is no call to eliminate cars or prohibit the riding of bikes. Riding bikes and driving cars involves risk, and it is a risk that is accepted. So you're probably saying to yourselves, well, this is all tremendously amusing, and yes, I remember blowing up frogs when I was a kid. What does it have to do with the DGR project? As a resident of Kincardine, I've accepted that there is risk associated with having a nuclear plant in my proverbial backyard. The province is the beneficiary of the power it produces, and given the undeniable scientific evidence of the human influence on climate change, their world will have to embrace nuclear power in order to reverse or stem the tide of global warming. If we are to keep up with the demand for electrical power, a 100-fold increase in the number of all the wind turbines in all the world wouldn't come close to replacing the amount of power generated by a nuclear facility. Over the last year or so, a recurring comment from those opposed to the DGR for low and intermediate level nuclear waste has been that it is too close to Lake Huron. But the fact is it must therefore already be too close to Lake Huron, because that is where it is stored now, in temporary above-ground facilities. Facilities that expand with each year that the nuclear plants in Ontario produce power at the nuclear reactors. Because with each gigawatt of power produced, there will be a corresponding amount of waste generated. That waste involves some risk, and that risk has to be managed. Ever since Douglas Point was established, The waste streams have been managed, and yet the processes and policies to manage that waste, low and intermediate level, since the 60s have changed significantly over the past 5 decades. The risk is the same, the release of radionuclides. How we manage that risk is a matter of continuous improvement. Will the above-ground storage facility, or has been suggested an enhanced above-ground facility with more robust containers, be safer or less risky than being stored underground? For me, it isn't the proximity to the lake that is the concern. It is which method provides the best barriers to prevent the release of radionuclides. Or is transport of the low and intermediate level waste above ground hundreds of miles away to a Canadian Shield repository safer than the establishment of a DGR on site at the Bruce in the stable Coburg Formation? The vulnerabilities during the current transport processes are already recognized as a concern, and one would imagine that an increase in the number of miles of transport and an increase in the volume of waste transported would increase the risk, not lessen it. Not to be flippant, but the largest risk to the employees on site is not within their working environment, but on their daily commute to and from the BNPD. I believe as a layperson that the Western Waste Management Facility operates safely and in accordance with established best practices of the nuclear industry. Is there risk? Yes, there are risks. Can these risks be eliminated completely? No, they cannot. Even a complete shutdown of the reactors and therefore elimination of the waste generation stream would require management of the existing waste currently housed at the Western Waste Management Facility. Is there a better alternative to manage the risks? Well, this is what the question was a decade ago. Could a deep geologic repository better protect the people in the surrounding environment of Kincardine, the Bruce, Ontario, and beyond from the release of radionuclides? This is what Kincardine Council wanted OPG to explore. I'm not an expert, and so I am pleased that a process such as this exists. I'm equally pleased that many assumptions have been tested during the past 10 years and during the hearing itself. I actually find it comforting that the panel requested more information from OPG on the siting of the facility and asked that they explore other alternatives. I also find it oddly encouraging that Ontario Power Generation is owned by the people of Ontario and therefore not necessarily beholden to shareholder value as a motivator for the project. I found it interesting that some presenters last fall felt it necessary to question the independence of the panel, insinuated bias and connections between OPG and the CNSC and even the Joint Review Panel itself in order to suggest that this process is flawed. I just wanted to state for the record that after following this process for the last 10 years and observing the hearings, that I have tremendous respect for how thorough the panel has been in their approach. I trust that your knowledge and experience will allow you to wade through the volumes of information, data, and presentations in order to make an informed recommendation regarding the DGR. Thankfully, it will not be politicians or lay people such as myself that determine if the scientific evidence presented is valid. It will be you, a panel of experts with specific knowledge of the various elements and issues surrounding the project, that will make the determination. What will the future bring in terms of improvement to the management of nuclear waste? I do not know. I hold out hope that future generations will find a process that can make nuclear waste inert and that the risks of radioactivity can be somehow eliminated. But until that happens, I have absolutely no doubt that the nuclear industry will continue to improve their processes over the next 50 years as they have changed and adapted their processes over the last 50 years. Terrorist threats to our Canadian nuclear facilities just weren't considered in 1968, and now security in a post-9/11 world sees armed guards at the Bruce site. A new risk emerged, and steps were taken to manage it. One only has to look back a century ago to see how far we have come. Madame Curie, a pioneer in the field, died due to radiation sickness, and now radioisotopes are used as a cure for cancer. It almost seems incongruent. Is the assumption made a decade ago that storage underground, if technically feasible, is a better way of managing all the known risks inherent with the storage of low and intermediate level nuclear waste? I can't answer that, but I do put great faith and trust in your abilities to make the determination. I look forward to reading your report and recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Haight.